Hi, and welcome to the second notes class for Animate, or as I occasionally call it, Flash, because I've called it that way for over 20 some odd years. So please forgive me if I slip up on that more often than not. So one of the things I wanted to point out, this right here is for the advanced setup, and we're going to be using the beginner. I will be putting in a clip that's uh, the actual beginner explaining each one for that. So let's do some fun and play around with some Animate. Now what I did was I went File, New, and I came into the very high and hit Create. And obviously if I wanted to tweak it, I could change whatever settings I want. But this is it. Now my favorite mistake to make is accidentally using the mouse button or the scroll bar, and then I lose my canvas area, or actually my stage area. So let's click right in there. That allows me to center it, that little icon right there. Now, right now I have no keyframes, and I will be sticking some in just a teeny bit. It's set at 24 frames per second, so obviously when I fill in this many frames, I have 1 second of animation, which doesn't sound like a lot, but oh my goodness, it takes a long time. Now you can understand why, even with some of the powerful tools that we've got for animation, it takes, several years to do a movie. Even some of these shorter ones take, a year or two, which is, I know, hard to conceive, but it is true. So now what I want to do is I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click on my rectangle tool, and by default, for some weird reason, lately it's been clear, even though I didn't set it. So thankfully today it's not. So I'm going to go in here and find me some good grass color. So I'm going to click right there. And what I'm going to do is, this is the stage area. Anything out here is on the wings and you won't see it. Same way with up here. Well, it doesn't really matter if I don't quite get what's going to be my grass quite set right. Now, the thing I want to notice is this is kind of boring. It's nice flat lands. Maybe I lived in South Dakota, which I did, so that's kind of why it's so flat. But let's say that I want to add a little more texture to it, or a little bit of thing. Notice that I'm taking my mouse pointer right down here. I'm getting it close to the border, and notice how that mouse pointer now has a semicircle right there. That means if I hold click and drag, it will drag it up in the form of a semicircle. Now let me come over here to this edge right there, and now notice that that is no longer a semicircle. It now has like a triangle. So what I can do is I can click and I can drag it like that, so I even have more character to it. And once again, this is what's going to be shown. This is what's on the stage. Everything over here is not available. So the thing that I really want to point out about Flash or Animate or whatever you want to call it, actually you should call it Animate, what am I saying, is there's a lot of ways of taking shapes and making them totally different. So one of the things I wanted to point out to you right now is I'm going to click right up here. Now notice that only the stroke at the very top has been selected. It doesn't select the whole thing. If I wanted to select the whole stroke, I would have to click and drag like this, and then click on it, and I can change it. Now if I wanted to change some of the style of that stroke, I can come over here, put it dashed or a straight line. One of the things I've been playing at quite a bit is the width profile. It gives you a lot of cool different looks. But I really don't need that right now. What I was hoping for was a little bit better brush, or kind of a rougher. Let's see if I got anything here that I want to use. That's kind of better. Now if I want to play around with the stroke, I can click here. Now notice my finger, it gives me those two arrows. I can click and drag it like that. I'll drag it down. Another thing I can do is, another way of doing it is just clicking and dragging it right there. Or last but not least, if you kind of have a feel for what you want, just double click in there and you put the exact number in. So there's typically 3 different ways of changing the stroke. go. Come back here and have some fun. Obviously, if I wanted to change the color of it, I can do that too. Now, once I'm done with this, I can actually lock it. But now I've got a problem because right here, I can't actually take my slider there, so I'm going to call this grass by double-clicking in there. I'm going to add another layer. And now what I can do is I can click out to 24 frames right there. I can hit F5, and what F5 does for me is it fills it in. Now notice something very important down here. When I'm in, when my slider's over here, I've got grass, but when I click over here, I lose my grass, which is kind of like my grass right now. I kind of blew it. I've got a dust bowl instead. So if I want my grass to hang out, these frames are filled, these are empty frames. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to come down here and go F5, but I've locked it, so I have to come back here and hit F5, and there we go. And now I have grass all the way. Come back here and lock it again. So now, my favorite mistake to do is, I think I'm making changes to layer 2, but I actually have layer 1 selected, or grass layer. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to call it sun. Double click. And instead of a rectangle, I'm going to create my oval tool. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to click and drag. Now, I don't know what I was thinking. I haven't seen a green sun in quite a while, at least not on this planet. So what I can do is I can come back here, click inside the fill. Now, if you get your eyes real close to this, you should see some polka dots. What I want to do, or dots, I should say. I like to call them polka dots. So I'm going to change it to, I don't like that color either. Let's go a little bit more yellow. Now another thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to come over here, select it like this, and I'm going to create an object. And what that's going to allow me to do is I can then come into our library and throw out mini suns, so I can have it be a totally different planet if I wanted to. Now the thing I want to point out is, even though I had my slider or my insertion point right here, it actually inserted the sun way over here. Now the reason for that is it's going to always put the object to the keyframe that's closest to the left, or the keyframe that you're on at that time. Now if I wanted to, I can click and drag that sun all the way over here, and now I have no sun right there. I have the keyframe show up. Let me just hit enter. It shows up right there. So let me click, drag it back over there. Yep. Oop, come on. I'm going to hit enter. Back here, no sun, sun. So that's one thing. Now I can easily click and drag it back here. Oh, didn't grab it, sorry. Click, drag it back there. This one's a little trickier than I thought it was going to be. I think it's because I'm videotaping and it's not behaving the way it should. Come on. There we go. Notice that I've got that little rectangle right there that's kind of dotted rectangle. That means I've actually got that object. Now, when I let go, it drags that object all the way over there. Like I said, this is a little clunky. I don't know if it's Animate or if it's Animate being videotaped is why it's so clunky. But it is kind of annoying that it is clunky. Now the next thing I want to do is I want the sun to travel across the sky, so what I can do is I can come over here about 24 frames right there. Got it selected. I'm going to hit F6. Or, this is a cool one. See right there? That's an insert keyframe. But I like F6 because I grew up with F6. They didn't always have this insert keyframe right there. So I'm not quite used to using it yet. Another thing that they've changed that's kind of disappointing is they used to have a way of taking this timeline slider all the way to the left. They used to have one right there and then all the way to the end. Made it a lot easier to manage, but I can see why they went back one or go back. Now this is a really cool feature right here. I click on that, it takes me back to the first keyframe. Takes there, it goes to the next keyframe, not the last keyframe, but the next keyframe. So I have to admit, I like that feature. That is a very good feature. Now, one of the things I want to do is I've got this animation. It's very boring. I'm going to hit enter. Now you pay attention to here, not up to the screen. I hit enter. I sit and wait for a second. And it disappears because I somehow missed that one. So I'm going to hit F5 right there so I can get my sun back. So this is my keyframe. That has got to be the most boring. Even though I had an animation, well, now I'm going to make it a little bit more exciting by dragging the sun over here. And now I'm going to go back to that keyframe. There we go. Start back at the start, and I'm going to hit enter to play the animation. Boom. Boring. But still, it is an animation, and it is 26 frames. So I've got over a second of animation, which is, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to come back to the first keyframe. I am going to click right here, and I'm going to create what we call a classic tween. And now it's going to say, hey, that frames cannot be tweened because symbol. I turned it into a symbol. I don't know why it's saying that, but that's okay. I'm going to go there and watch what ends up happening now. I'm going to go back to that first keyframe. I'm now going to hit enter. And it's traveled across the sky. Now, another thing that we can do to make this even more exciting is I'm going to use the transform tool. And so I click on that little tool right there. I'm going to hold down my shift key so I can keep this sun proportionally sized, and I'm going to drag it down like that. Oh, I was hitting the wrong key. No wonder its shift wasn't working. And I'm going to drag it up here, or I could actually drag it that way off of the stage. And now I'm going to hit enter. It's now midday. Let's go back again. And hit enter. There we go. So a little bit more exciting. Now I want to point out that layer order counts, but you really don't have a good example of that right now. So I'm going to do another object so you can get a better feel for that. Hi, hopefully this will be stitched together with my other video, but if not, I have to apologize. I had a little bit of a frog in my throat, and I definitely wanted to not have you listen to a coughing attack. So what I'm going to want to do right now is I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to select my rectangle tool. And then I want a new layer. So for now, just temporarily, I am going to lock this layer right here. And if I really truly wanted to, I could click right here. Come on. Oh, it's locked. Sorry. And show hide. There we go. I'm going to lock it. Now I'm going to call this sky. Oop, come on. There we go. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the video that's slowing things down. I think my processor is kind of going, huh? You got too much going on at one time. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take a rectangle like this. I don't want to fill that color, so I'm going to click right there, and I'm going to want a blue sky. And then I'm just going to draw that rectangle. Oops. Now I know for a fact it's got to be that video because I was practicing this earlier and I wasn't having these same issues. My poor computer is going, I need to be updated. Come on. There we go. I don't need the jaggedy edge. There we go. Yeah, I believe that's taken care of. Oh, you know what? It just only did that one edge. Let's just leave it. Now, once again, I want to point out that since my keyframe was right here, I didn't have a keyframe here or here on that layer. Yes, I had a keyframe here, but it's a different layer. So you can control each layer independently. And typically, what you want to do is if you have one object moving one direction or changing, you want to have them each on separate layers. And then, you know, obviously you can get some pretty heavy-duty layers. What you may eventually want to do is stick all those layers in what we call a folder. And that way it helps you organize. I've had friends buy Flash animations and then want to go in and tweak them. And it's like, oh my God, they are such a pain in the butt to tweak. Because one, they typically don't name the layers. And two, there are so many of them. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to change the sky. So give me a second here. I'm going to click right here in frame 24. I'm going to hit F6. And then I'm going to right click inside here and create a classic tween. And just say OK. Now what I'm going to do is slightly different. So I'm going to click back in this keyframe. I'm actually going to click on the graphic itself, and I'm going to take color effects, and I'm going to come down here to alpha. No, I don't want to do alpha. Let's try something else. Brightness. I can make it really bright, or I can make it really dark. Well, obviously without sun it's going to be really dark, and then I'm going to come over here to this keyframe. I'm going to click on this, and there we go. So let's see how it looks. I'm taking that property and it should be changing. Good, so I'm going to hit enter. There, it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Let's see how it looks. Now, obviously, this blue is kind of taken over everything. And remember, I told you about layer order counts. I'm going to make my timeline a little bit bigger. I'm going to grab the sky layer, and now notice there's a black line underneath that with a little circle. That's saying, hey, you're moving this, and this is where if you let go of your mouse click, that's where it's going to go. So I've clicked and drag, and I'm still holding that mouse button. I let go, and now this is what it looks like. So let's start over at the beginning. So a couple clicks, and let's hit right here. There we go. Now I may change my mind. Like I think it'd make so much more sense. So I'm going to unlock it. And that's my biggest mistake, is I get real frustrated when it doesn't move. I'm going to drag that sun down here, and then I'm going to come all the way back to the other keyframe. One more click. I'm going to drag it down here a little bit, and I'm also going to make it a lot smaller. So I'm going to click right here and hold down my shift key to keep it proportional, and hit enter and see what happens. There we go. Now I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to go to the very back. It would be really kind of cool if I had some stars, so I'm going to double click right in there, and I'm going to create a layer called stars. Now I'm going to right click here, and you're going to say, hey, where's the star? Well, there's a poly star tool. It really drives me crazy. I keep requesting that they separate the polygon and the star tool, but they don't. So what I have to do is I have to come over here to Object. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Tool, sorry. And go to Star. And I don't want blue fill. I want a yellow fill. No, I don't want yellow either. I want maybe a white star. Now another thing I can do is I can click right here on the selection tool, click right in the middle and go hold down my Alt key, and click on that, and then just use the transform. Now I'm going to hit enter. I've got these stars, but now I have a problem. Stars sometimes stay up, but usually during the middle of the day you're not going to see a star. So we're going to have to do something about that. So what I want to do next is I'm going to click back here, and then I'm going to click right there on that slider. We might be able to get away with that. I'm going to hit F6. Now I can just hit delete, and my stars go away. So what F6 does is gives me a keyframe, and then by hitting delete it makes it a blank keyframe. So it's stars are here, stars are here, stars are gone. So there, we've made a little animation. Now obviously I could do a sea, I could do an ocean, I could do sky, I can do all sorts of things. But what I want to do is I'm going to click and go File, Save, and then I got to make sure I remember where to save it, because by default it's going to try to save it in the Documents section, and I don't have mine set up that way. So I always have something on the desktop when I'm working on a project. So I double click on my desktop, and obviously a Mac is just a little bit different than that, but I'm going to do animation files, and then I am going to go sky. And then I'm just going to close it and go file new. I could leave it open, but normally I would leave it open, but it seems like my machine is really clunky right now, so I'm going to go file close. And if I hit full HD, you're going to find out something. It's going to want to do 32 frames per second. So what I'm doing is I clicked on more presets. I'm going to come back to medium again and hit create. And voila. So what I'm going to do is we've got these primitive tools which are kind of cool. And like I said, by default, it goes to blank. Drives me, not blank, but goes to white. Why, I do not know. I am going to find me a color, any color. What color do I want? Oh, let's go gray. There we go. Now, one of the things you got to be careful with, primitive, it goes together. And notice I can't change the dimensions like I did before. Now I'm going to do the normal rectangle tool. A square is a square is a square. No, not quite. Watch what I can do now with this square. I can come back over here and change it like that. Change it like that. You know, if I rotated it, I could maybe make that into a Starfleet badge. I'm going to have to make it a little bit silvery, have a better black outline. But just, you know, kind of an idea what the objects you can do. So that's the difference between a primitive and a regular rectangle. The same is going to be true with oval and oval primitive. The reason I like the oval primitive, I'm going to come back here, I'm going to hit, that's not green, I wanted yellow, come on. I'm going to go like that. I'm going to select that object. And notice I've got a start angle and a close angle. If you really look closely, there's some dots, and I can physically click and drag it like that. I could not see them, and so I didn't want to kind of fumble and bumble, so that's why I came over here. I can change those same angles right there. Right there. So here I got my Ms. Pac-Man. Now this is where that width profile can be kind of cool. Now the stroke is too small, so I can go here like a little bit bigger like that. I don't know, I gotta do maybe 4. I think that looks so much cooler than just a standard stroke. It gives it a little bit more character. And the nice thing about the primitive tool, the stroke is part or is connected to the fill, so I don't have to worry about putting them together. Because like I said, my biggest mistake with circles or regular rectangles is I'll click and drag in the fill area and then end up leaving the stroke, which is not always necessarily a bad thing, but you just got to be ready for when it happens. So there's Miss Pac-Man. Now, one of the things that I should point out is it's amazing how little simple things. Now, for once, I'm actually going to go with a white fill. I'm going to have a little bit thicker stroke. It's going to be black. And I'm going to create some eyes. And what I want to do is now I'm going to come back here, do a circle. I'm going to do a standard width though this time. And I actually could go with a primitive. I think a primitive might work a little bit better. But this time, instead of a white fill, I'm going to go with a black fill. I'm using the primitive. I'm going to hold down my shift key, keep it nice and circular. And I always forget this, but it goes back to the default setting, or the last setting that it had. So there's my circle. I'm going to click, drag it over here. And then where you position the eyeball will give your character a different look and feel. Now I'm going to select these two at the same time. I'm going to hold down my Alt key and I'm going to drag it over here, and now I've got two different eyes. And then I can grab this one down here. And I have a silly eye combination. I can have them looking to, I was going to say left, to the right. Couldn't tell I was dyslexic. Oh, you know, and you can have them right in the middle. And I'm using those smart guides, that line that's going across there, that's saying that they're even. Now I could use the transform tool. Another thing I can do is I could come over here, lock it down, and then this is going to be the position of that. I can make it like 20. Now the reason I did it over here is when you get too small, it becomes very hard to do the change. And then also for preciseness, clicking over here, I can just go another 20. And I Control Z. Oops. Got the fill by accident. Oh, I know what I did. See a little indentation? I accidentally changed that back. There we go. So that's how you can make beady eyes. So, you know, there's a saying, eyes are the window to the soul. I'm going to jump back here for a second. This is outstanding. And so is this one, how to draw cartoons and how they created these cartoons. I mean, it's just amazing how these simple shapes that I'm showing you how to create right now are converted into an actual animation, or a character, I should say, for an animation. There we go. So we got some googly eyes. Now another thing I want to do is, oh, I don't want to do rectangle. I want to do my oval tool. Don't want it to be black. Make kind of a blue. There we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I got that oval. Once again, it's two different things. It's a stroke and a fill. So if I accidentally click on that, oops. Just remember there's this cool thing called F2. Not F2. Huh. Control Z is what I meant to say. Brain not working. So Control Z always works. F2 takes it out of here. It's like, oops. Now the next thing I'm going to do is draw my rectangle tool. And I'm going to go like that. I got them both selected. I can come back here, drag that right there, and then notice that, oops, I kept my stroke. I can delete it one segment at a time if I wanted to, or I can select them all at once. Now that's one of the bad things, is it's going to be in different areas. But the reason I was doing this is to show you how you can make complex shape. I took a rectangle and it will take it partially out of there. Now another thing I wanted to do is I'm going to come up here, click on this. Now another trick I can do is go edit. Nope, I'm sorry. Modify transform. They moved it on me a while back. I could do free transform, or I could flip horizontal, and now I've got something that looks like that. I'm actually going to do another transform. I could have done a rotate like that if I wanted to. I'm going to drag it up like this. Now it would be really nice if I had a stroke. So I'm going to right click here, click on the ink bottle, and I click on it and it puts a stroke in there for me. There we go. And if I want to give my little character an eye, go like that. Draw my eye. Drag them both there. Yeah, I get an eye. Now if I want to get rid of that stroke inside, it looks like I still have an eye. But if I have a colored background, it will change. Which, by the way, you know, I could come over here to document and I can change some of the settings. Oh, my favorite one to get rid of is looping the timeline. And now I can hit publish. And then go OK. So I just published that. I can save it out different formats if I wanted. Come back to the timeline. This is my doc, my profile, more setting. I can match contents. I can come down here, go more settings. I can set up how I'm going to scale the content. I can match it. So if I had accidentally had some extra objects over here that I really wanted in, I could click on match contents and it will fill it up right there. I can also come in here and change the stage color. Now I could barely see that. I just happened to know it was there. So the reason I'm going to do that is so I can, ooh, notice that. So if I wanted this color back in and make sure I had white eyes. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter if you're going to keep a white background. Now, one last thing that I want to show you is the illusion ability. Let's go File, New. I'm going to keep it consistent. Stay it with medium. If I have an object like that, and then I come over here, hit F6, if I want to have the illusion that this object is far away, I'm going to make it small. And then as I bring it closer to me, obviously I want this object to get much bigger. And so I do the transform right there.